Shalom. I am Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you back for the waybeshiva.org. I'm going to talk about two interrelated things in this short Devar Torah. One is this coming Shabbat is called Parsha Zachar, the Sabbath of Remembrance, because we read on this Shabbat the portion of the Torah telling us, commanding us to remember what Amalek did to the Jewish people, or tried to do to the Jewish people when they left Egypt and were on the way to Israel. And the second thing, and the connection, is that just a few days later, after Shabbos, in fact, Monday night, begins the holiday of Purim, which is the greatest and most joyful holidays of the Jewish year. When the Torah tells us to remember what Amalek did to us, Zachar Amalek, remember what Amalek did to you when you were weak, when you left Refidim, when you were, Rashi says that means when you were weak in your emunah, your belief in God. Why is the Torah telling us to remember this? Is it just to remember historical events? Similarly, on Purim, we read the Megillah, the Book of Esther, the story of what happened with Mordechai and Esther, King Ahasuerus, the wicked king, and Haman, his henchman, who wanted to exterminate the entire Jewish race, all of the Jewish people. Are we reading that also as a historical basis? And the answer is we are not. The Gemara in Masechet Megillah has a very strange comment. It says, if you read the Megillah backwards, or if you read the story of Esther backwards, you haven't fulfilled your obligation to hear the Megillah. That sounds very strange. Who's going to read anything backwards? What it means is if you look at it as something that just happened back then, thousands of years ago, and you don't relate it to our present time, you've not fulfilled what this is about. We're told that Purim is to be kept for generation to generation. Similarly, remembering Amalek is also to be observed, this remembrance from generation to generation. So since these are not historical events, what does this come to teach us? In order to understand this, we have to understand that there are different levels of belief in God. There is an emunah, a belief in God that is intellectual. Yes, I look around, and just as I look at a painting that an artist created, I look at this world, the artist must be God who created this world. That's intellectual. But then it goes beyond that. There's a higher level, and that's emotional. You feel God in your heart. And as the Netivot Shalom says, there's even a higher level, and that's where you feel God in your very limbs. Your fingers want to do the will of God. What does Purim teach us about how we can have faith in God, emunah in God, and bitachon, trust in God? Bitachon is a different level. First of all, going back to Parsha Zachar, to Amalek. What was Amalek's job? And Amalek's job, he tried to kill the Jews. He tried to kill them when they were a little bit weak in their belief in God. And the word Amalek, the Hebrew word Amalek, has the same numerical value as the Hebrew word Sofek, which is doubt. Amalek, at that time, wanted to sow doubt into the minds of the Jewish people about the existence of God and the actions of God in this world. Similarly, with Purim, we have to remember in generation what it means to have true bitachon, trust in God. You look at the Purim story, and here the Jews were destined, signed by the decree of the king, destined to be exterminated. Haman, the wicked Haman, paid a lot of money to the king. I'll give you this money, let us kill the Jews. Mordechai, who was the leader of the Jewish people, Mordechai refused to bow down to Haman. That further infuriated Haman. Wouldn't Mordechai have known that this puts the Jewish people in danger? And if we learn from the Megillah that Mordechai didn't have any doubts. He didn't have any doubt. He knew that God would save his people. He knew that no matter what our enemies try to do to us, God is always with us. That's the message of Purim. Even when Esther said, after she was asked to go to the king and intercede on behalf of the Jewish people, she said, I don't know if I can do that. If I'm not invited, the rule in the kingdom was he could kill me. And so Mordechai said, don't worry, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't, whatever happens, our salvation is going to come from another source. And of course, that's the miracle that happened. We had very few in number against the great Persian Republic, and they were not able to defeat us. We defeated them, defeated Haman, and were saved. What Mordechai teaches us is the power of bitachon, trust in God. Not just emunah, that I think, yeah, I believe in God. No, beyond that. It's easy to say I believe in God, but when push comes to shove, where you're in the darkest situation, can you say that truly I trust that God will help me out of this? That's what bitachon is, and that's what Mordechai demonstrated, and that's what we learn. We have to learn from Amalek. When Amalek seemed to be victorious, it was when Moses had his hand down. When Moses had his hand up, reaching towards heaven, the Jews were victorious. And that's a message that teaches us how important it is to have bitachon, to understand that in any darkness that we are at, whether it's physical or spiritual darkness, God is with us. We know it says in the Torah that Moses ascended the mountain and he went into a darkness called Arafel. There are three kinds of darkness. There is Anan, like very heavy clouds. There's Choshech, which is a very great darkness. And then Arafel is the darkest of all. The darkest of all is like palpable darkness. So what did Moshe find? What did Moses find when he went into that Arafel, into that darkness? He found God. That's a message to us that in our darkest times, God is with us. That's bitachon. And that's the message of Purim. When the Megillah says, when the Mishnah says, don't read the Megillah backwards, means don't look at this as an historical event. Look at it as something that is happening right now. Feel the pain. Feel the pain. Feel the despair that the Jewish people had then, and realize that the way to get away from that pain and that despair was bitachon in Hashem. True trust in Hashem. That's what we have to do on Purim. We have to fight the enemies that are trying to kill the Jewish people even today. We have a lot of people who on a daily basis are trying to kill Jewish people. And we have to understand that they will never succeed in wiping out the Jewish people because God is always with us. Bitachon is what we need. Not just emunah, not just an intellectual feeling that God will save us, but an absolute knowledge, as Mordechai knew, that God will save us. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a wonderful Shabbat and a very happy Purim. Purim Sameach v'Shabbat Shalom.